Hello, YouTube divers. This is Water Eye 122, and I want to welcome you all to another episode of Bands of the Alphabet. Now, here's a little bit of a disclaimer before we get into today's edition. The band I'm going to be talking about today is a band that I have very recently just gotten into, like very recently, and outside of and I've only heard like a couple songs off of their first album, so try to bear with me here. But I guarantee you I will make a separate video on this band, and I will talk about, by the time I listen to their whole discography, I will make a separate video on this band, and I will talk a little bit more about them there. So just please try to bear with me here, and enjoy the video if you can. So last time on Bands of the Alphabet, we talked about the letter S, and today it's on to the letter T, and that is the band Testament. Testament is one of the most important bands when it comes to thrash metal. I mean, like with Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, Slayer, Exodus, Creator, bands like, Holy Moses even. I'm not a big Holy Moses fan. Zentrix and Acid Rain, bands like that. Dark Angel as well. But when it comes to Testament, there is no doubt that they are in the same league as all those other bands that I just listed. They're still a 10 out of 10. And I've heard like 3 or 4 songs off their first album, The Legacy, which came out in 1987. And it didn't disappoint. I mean, Over the Wall, the opener of this album, gosh darn it, that is a freaking good song. It's killer. I mean, Chuck Billy on the vocals is just absolutely amazing. The guitar duo of Alex Skolnick and Eric Peterson is just, it freaking packs a punch. There's great bass lines by Greg Christian, and great drum parts by Louis Clemente. Oh man, that song and the other songs I've heard off of this album is just absolutely amazing. Absolutely freaking amazing. And Testament was a band that I really wanted to get into. Like, they were one of those bands, along with Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and Zentrix even, or bands like that I just really wanted to get into. And so, listen to their first couple songs, and yeah, I'm on the Testament bandwagon, folks. Now when it comes to the honorable mentions, I have 3 honorable mentions as usual. I have Temple of the Dog as my runner-up, and their self-titled album, their only album to date, or at least the only one that I know. Hunger Strike and Say Hello to Heaven are 2 of my favorites, are my 2 favorite songs off that album. And that album basically features Eddie Vedder and Chris Cornell, 2 of the most iconic names in the Seattle grunge movement that took place in the 90s. Basically, those 2 songs orchestrate what these 2 singers would later go on to be known for in their respective bands. Eddie Vedder with Pearl Jam and Chris Cornell and Soundgarden. Although at this point, I think Soundgarden's first 2 albums had already came out at this point, but Pearl Jam was so far nowhere to be seen. When it comes to Hunger Strike, Eddie Vedder absolutely delivers, and then Say Hello to Heaven is the main reason that solidified Chris Cornell as one of my favorite vocalists ever. I mean, if you don't believe me, please go check out that song, that album, and that band. Temple of the Dog is, in my opinion, one of the best projects that Chris Cornell was in. I mean, of course, he was in Temple of the Dog, he was in Soundgarden, he was in Audioslave, he might have had a solo career. I wish he did, if he didn't. I love all the stuff that Chris Cornell has done over the years, and Rest in peace, man. We'll never forget you. Alright, moving on to my second honorable mention. I'm going to go with the 80s pop legends, Tears for Fears. Now, I really tend to avoid pop music on this channel for those of you who may be new to this channel. But Tears for Fears is another one of those bands that kind of does it right for me. I mean, their 1983 album, The Hurting, is just absolutely killer, and it's probably my favorite 80s pop record. And that's saying something, because I cannot stand pop music. But Mad World is on the freaking album. And I know a lot of people, when people think of Mad World, they think of the Gary Jules version, which is good in of its own self. I mean, that's how I was introduced to the song. I mean, of course, it's seen in memes, and it's everywhere on the internet. And nobody talks about the original version, which was Tears for Fears' version. And I heavily prefer the original version of Mad World, the Tears for Fears version. And it's basically the song that got me into Tears for Fears. And Tears for Fears is just a freaking amazing pop band. I mean, I love their lead singer. He has a killer voice. And if you don't believe me, go listen to Mad World. The Tears for Fears version, not the Gary Jules version. The Tears for Fears version. You'll like it. Alright, and moving on, we got the Turtles as my third and final honorable mention, simply because they created Happy Together, which is one of the most iconic classical rock songs to date. Yeah, it kind of gives you come together moments from the Beatles, but when it comes to those two songs together, I slightly prefer Happy Together. I mean, Happy Together is, in my opinion, a little bit more complex. It's a little less iconic, but it is more technical when it comes to the vocal standards. And if you're trying to play that like on a separate instrument, then oh boy. But overall, the Turtles, strong band. But out of the four bands that I've talked about here, Testament is the band that I kind of know the most. It's really between Testament and Temple of the Dog, that are kind of interchangeable. But the winner here goes to Testament. And once again, thank you so much to everyone who's bearing with me through this video. I know that I don't really know a lot of Testament stuff, like The New Order and Practice What You Preach. Those are two albums that I'm really excited for, but I have yet to hear them. But I will get into them. I will get into them. And like I said at the beginning, I will make a separate video on Testament, whether it be at album rankings or things like that. Or maybe like a review of Testament's overall amazingness, I guess. But overall, I will get back to Testament later on in this channel. I guarantee you that. So, thank you so much for watching. So, with that said, that concludes this edition of Bands of the Alphabet. Thank you so much for watching, my fellow YouTube divers. This is WaterEye122 signing out, ready to dive into more fun on YouTube. Thanks for watching.